Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. This one is going to be a little bit shorter than normal because we did not grab any questions from the Q&A with my mom. I think a lot of the questions were maybe directed at my mom just as a follow-up. So typically we just grab questions that are about projects that we've done, and most of the time so that I can tell things that I forgot to say in the video or correct something that I said wrong, that sort of thing. So we might at some point, maybe this winter, my mom and I will do another Q&A. It would be really interesting to have my dad in on one. And you guys seem to be interested in that idea.
I think it'd be stressful for you because he's a little bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it would make me nervous. I don't know what he would say.
Well, luckily it's not live and we can edit it, but he seems like, and this is good, I think, overall, but he's gotten to a point in his life where he just doesn't care what people think about him.
Yes.
And he's just living his true self.
Yeah. And he doesn't care what other people think about him, which is awesome.
But you know what? People like him for that. Yeah. He can make friends just so quickly. He just, and Joe can do that too, your brother.
Yeah.
But
they're really personable, I think, because people can relate to that and they want to be like that.
Yeah. That you can sense that he's just being himself.
Yeah. Can you imagine what the comment section would be like in his YouTube videos if he had a channel? That would be scary. Okay, let's just jump into the videos from this last week. First one was planting lilacs, hydrangeas, and caryopteris. I had a gator full of plants that weren't necessarily prime. We had some brand new pufferfish hydrangeas, a new type of paniculata out next year with absolutely enormous blooms. I forgot to rewater them one day, one of those days where it was over 105. I can't remember what. Anything over 105 is just too much. And some things need to be rewatered during those days, even if they were watered.
Especially in plant cans.
What's that?
Especially in plant cans.
Right, yeah.
Not necessarily when they're planted.
Right. Sorry. You see, those are the types of things that we have to clear up. So we go and water those things that are in these little nursery containers, and then sometimes they just can't hold to the next day. And I just spaced doing it. So the leaves were all burned. I was so bummed because that plant was looking, especially the one with the massive bloom, was looking so prime. But then we also planted a couple of Centaura double blue lilacs, which I was so excited to add back into our landscape. The last time I planted one, it looked so gorgeous. It was starting to get some size, and then gophers came through and just ate the root system out from under it. So we don't have near the gopher problem we once had, thankfully. So we've got 2 new ones in the garden, and then some caryopteris, which were actually starting to rot in their cans. I could smell it when I took them out of their plant cans. So they looked all wilted, like they were dry. They were a little bit on the wet side. So I think they'll be all right. We'll see what happens.
It's so hard when plants are in their nursery containers because...
To regulate.
Yeah, it's they seem like they need water, but really the thing is they just don't like being in the cans for that long.
Well, and the caryopteris, some plants will come in some kind of a mix that you wonder, what is this? it is holding nothing.
Right.
The water shoots right through, which caryopteris typically like, but in our heat, in containers, they can't handle that. So it's just, there's a fine line there. Anyway, so first question was from Seabass. I planted 3 little lime hydrangeas last spring. They are now 4 feet tall and have big, beautiful blooms. However, they have all flopped this summer. How would you recommend pruning them next spring to encourage stronger stems? How do you prune a flopped branch? I had that happen to our limelight hydrangea standard last year. I just tied all of the branches back together and the interior. And typically what you want to do not late winter, early to mid spring, when you start seeing the leaf buds start to swell, that's the best time to go in and prune, because then you can see where the strong buds are. And typically you only want to take your hydrangeas down by about 1/3. And that way that bottom section creates a really strong woody framework. So every year, if you just make it a habit to go in and take them down by 1/3, they will just naturally become much stronger. So that's what I would do. And at that point too, because you can see the leaf buds, you can cut out any spindly, weak looking stems that really are just going to sap energy and not really produce much for you. So you can selectively prune some of those out. Empty Chair said, what bird was doing the calling toward the end, an owl or a dove? Dove. We have those all over the place. They do have a really pleasant sound. Erin said, I have a question about the hydrangeas. How do you keep them happy in full sun? Mine always scorch, and even in the shade, they seem to never have enough water. I'm zone 6B, but we have a lot more humidity in this area than you. We have some that do really well, like our limelights up front. So long as they have sufficient water, they don't scorch, but they are protected in the late afternoon. And I think that might be key in really harsh environments, because we have other hydrangeas, paniculatas and arborescens, primarily paniculatas out there. And even with sufficient water, if they're not protected, if they're out in the middle of nowhere, I mean, with all the wind and full sun all day, they can tend to scorch, usually on the west side, right? Like the side that gets the afternoon sun. We'll see like the blooms looking a little brown on that side, but the other side looks great, that's shaded in the afternoon. So I think if you could maybe, you say even in the shade they're scorching. Boy, even if they're getting a lot of water and you have them in a shady position, if it's a really windy spot, they can scorch. If they're nutrient deficient in a specific nutrients, they can scorch as well. Or they'll kind of look like scorched a little bit on the ends, so that could be the issue. But other than that, like I know for us, just kind of giving them some dappled light in the afternoon or protection in the late afternoon from that sun is kind of key. We still plant them everywhere though. Full sun, whatever. Yeah. They're still pretty.
Well, we have some that are 100% full sun and don't scorch.
I haven't taken a close look at those little limelight primes in the loop out there.
Yeah,
that hedge.
They're
are they
scorching
scorched?
just
They look so good from
just a hair. They need to get some size on them. They're like,
but they are blooming from tip to toe,
Yeah.
like all the way.
Yeah,
the whole entire shrub is a flower. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be awesome once they've got a little size. Sue said, would you pass on purchasing an auger system if you had the really hard-packed soil? I don't know.
I think no. Because
Hard-packed?
you're gonna have to dig a hole somehow. So you're gonna have to use a shovel or a digging bar or something. And what we do in the areas that are the most hard packed is drill kind of like a pilot hole. So you get the smallest size auger you can, drill that first,
That's
and
true.
then put a bigger. But a lot of the bigger augers have that pilot hole on them.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work, you'll need a couple augers, perhaps like a 3-inch or even a 2-inch.
Just to get you started.
Yeah, because those go in just about anything.
Yeah. I don't know that I would do an auger if I had really rocky soil, like big rocks. That would be really difficult.
I've watched a couple videos of guys using power planter augers in rocky soil, and it's a ton of work, but it still looks like it's easier than a shovel.
As a maybe not as strong of a person,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't do that in rocky soil because they are borderline like.
What would you do though?
I would use a shovel and probably just hate it. Hate digging holes. I mean, I can understand you guys who kind of complain about holes when you've got big rocks. My parents have a lot of rocks in their soil. Do you remember digging the holes for those like 5 autumn frost hostas?
Yeah, I do.
And you couldn't even dig it with a shovel.
Right.
My dad came out with we had a digging bar.
Right.
We're lucky.
Yeah.
There are a few areas, like when we planted those Spring Grove arbovitas, you should throw some of that footage up on the screen because, oh my goodness, I don't know how you guys stuck with us through all of last year's plantings. It looked so rough out there. And I look at it now and I even feel like there's rough spots. But it is 100 billion miles better than it was last year. I couldn't think of a number. It is so much better than it was last year. But when we planted those, I had to have Aaron get in on that because at that point we had the 9-inch auger, power planter auger, but they didn't have the pilot hole, like the heavy duty tip on the end, which now I think that's how they come. You don't even get it without the tip. It was really super duper hard to dig those holes.
Right.
And it was smoking. Like you could hear or smell rather the smell.
The motor.
Yeah.
Kind of burning.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so every once in a while we hit that hard soil. Margarita said, could you tell me how to access your videos on the construction of the summer house? I'm especially interested on the video with the insulation to the walls. A summer house.
Maybe referring to the cut flower shed?
To which there's really no footage.
We didn't build it
ourselves.
And we didn't ask them to film it. We didn't film it because they just came and did it as they had time.
It took over a year.
Yeah.
So that would be a really hard project to capture. It's still not done. We're still waiting for window hardware. We got window hardware and it was way too big for the windows. So that had to be sent back and new ones had to be ordered. So, just how it goes. I'm not going to complain though. I absolutely love that shed. It feels like me. It feels like my space. I don't know what it is about it. YouTube channel said, can you explain your rationale for why you would crowd your plants? Don't you ever want plants to have space around them even when full grown? They will. Don't worry. Typically, okay, so I guess I should say there is one plant that I've recently planted that I thought, I think I should pop those a little bit further out into the flower bed just because I want to add a little bit more maybe in front of them. I planted Arctic Fire dogwoods recently. And I think they would be fine if I prune them back hard every year. But I think I'm going to move those just a little bit. But typically everything else we plant, we give the proper amount of space. And that's why like drifts of plants, even though in the end I want them to be a big block, like a big drift, like continuous drift without space, for a few years they're going to look like they have space, because I've spaced them out like that. Rocky said, do you have several wells on your property? Was wondering how you were able to water everything on a daily basis. We have 2 wells, and in the process of getting a 3rd one scheduled for the new property that we just bought this spring.
Might take a while.
Yeah,
but we're not in a rush either, so.
No. Melody said, is that native dirt you're planting in, or did you haul dirt in? It looks awesome, and your auger goes through it like butter. In most spots out there, it's pretty nice consistency. The makeup of it isn't awesome. It's super high pH, but it is nice to dig in most spots. And then we've been top dressing, like for mulch, we were using compost. We get it delivered bulk by the truckload, and that's what we mulch with. And we figure if we just keep doing that, that is going to make our soil nice, like really nice over time. We don't expect it to be, perfect right away, but it's kind of a nice feeling as I'm putting things in the ground and, some of that mulch is falling into the holes, and like, that's all good things adding in around that root ball. Next video was finally putting plants in the Hartley greenhouse. So I was so excited for that project. I told Aaron the day before, like, block me out because this is what I'm doing today. I'm going to go plant shopping and I want to get some plants in here now that we've got the water situation figured out. I think they may start brickwork around, I say may, big question mark, but I'm hoping they start brickwork next week around the Hartley. We went and picked out the step that's going to go from where our brick patio used to be down into the Hartley area because, we're going to we had just enough grade to create a step down to make the Hartley area feel a little bit more separate than that brick area right above it. And they just finished up a huge part of the brick walkway up to the back kitchen door, and they'll finish up the like the main run. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, you'll see it all. We'll give you a tour, but they're going to finish up the rest of that area tomorrow. So it's all super exciting. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that other than that I did go shopping for houseplants. We potted them up and kind of arranged them in there, and I'm loving it. Sarah said, love the Hartley. Why do plants shock when moving to a much bigger pot, but not when planted out in the landscape or in a raised bed? Who knows? Is there some kind of a article out there that could shed some light on why plants shock like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. I have done zero research on that topic, but that's kind of my MO. I don't know why they shock like that or how they can sense it. It's weird. Veronica said, I recently repotted a bunch of my houseplants into espoma soil and my house got infested with fungus gnats. Dang. Have you ever experienced something like it? If so, how did you handle it? So I had fungus gnats for the very first time ever in the studio this spring. I used Mosquito Bits. I used these right here in water, which is a complete and total pain. I don't know that it actually helped. It might have taken down the population a little bit. This is what I ended up using. Hold on, let me get these open because this packaging is kind of loud. Hang on. I ended up using these sticky fly traps right here. So they've got this little pointed side that's not sticky. You can put this down in the soil and then you peel these little stickers off and fungus gnats are attracted to them. And I had them everywhere in here and I just swapped them out every once in a while. I tried not to overwater. So I made sure that things do dry out in here a lot because I just don't water in here as much. So I would let the soil dry out. I pulled top dress off, like if there was any moss top dressed on any of my plants, I pulled all of that off. I also scraped some of the top of the soil off on a lot of the plants in here that I noticed had a little bit more activity, and that seemed to help because the eggs, were in the top layer of the soil. It was a while it took me to combat that issue, but I never did any kind of spray or anything like that. I ended up just, trying the Mosquito Bits, which wouldn't have been as big of a deal had I put the bits in something like a strainer of some kind, but I just let them float in the water, and then I tried to strain them out, and it was just like, I went about it wrong. So maybe it would work better had I done it differently, but these tend to work pretty well. So you can probably still find a few of these in some of my plants in here if you look. Patty said, does mom sell the blue and white pots you just passed online? Pots, when we were down at the garden center. I don't know if they would ship those or not. I think they would attempt it. So you'd have to call them and see, tell them which one you like, and they would work it out with you. Ask for Robin. Melanie said the Hartley is really coming together. I love the addition of the plants. As for Christmas, I'd love a small, skinny tree in the middle, but how will you get power to it without having a cord across the floor? Very good point. I'm sure you'll want to be out there, and that would present a problem. Next best would be on one where the Pegasus is sitting, which is kind of where I'm leaning. Like, honestly, so the cord, I never thought of that, but that is another kind of notch against having it in the center. If you actually stand outside the structure and look at the way the door is, it cuts off a big portion of the view of, like, if I had a tall, skinny tree in there, you actually wouldn't see, it wouldn't be as grand as you think it is, I think, or you think it would be. It's just a little different. The view is in there. So I think what I'll do is probably get a tall, skinny tree and we can just move it around. Mm-hmm. And if we end up with it in the center, we can get one of those cord cover things. We have to have one of those in our house, in our great room, because our great room's massive. Like, it's a big room. It's kind of like you could section it off into 3 rooms, but we kind of have everything in the center around the fireplace. So that means lamps and stuff are in the center of the room. So we have one of those real lovely rubber cord covers. Yeah. And they work okay. The Thrifted Planter said, Laura, do you do so much from gardening, homemaking, and chickens? You do so much from, do you think of yourself as a homesteader or farmer? No, I don't really think of myself. I think of myself as a dabbler. Dabbler in many things, I think. I don't know. What do you think? What do we dabble?
Yeah. Do you really think of yourself as anything?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah. I just do what I do. I don't know. I never really think about it.
I was telling Benjamin about how I used to work for a company called Cable One, mm-hmm. and I installed people's cable and, mostly internet. And I had a truck and I had tools in there and I had cable and I was telling him all this stuff. He was pretty interested. Mm-hmm. And I'd go and I'd hook up, go through crawl spaces and up in people's attics. And he goes, so now you're just like a regular person?
So cute.
But yeah, so it's kind of how I view it, is like we're just regular people, I guess.
I would think just a gardener would be probably the most apt description. Olivia said, looks amazing, Laura. What if you just painted the plumbing black to make it disappear? I love that idea. I saw that many times in the comment section. That's something that we'll probably need to do. And because I really don't want to put up a curtain necessarily. I thought about doing like a really pretty piece of fabric and that would be cute, but it's not really the look I'm going for in there. I kind of want that not industrial, but yeah, I guess mm-hmm. kind of like it is a greenhouse, and I don't really want to make it. I'm already kind of making it something that it's not mm-hmm. a little bit by using it as a extension of the house, but I still want that element of rustic in there. Mm-hmm. So I really like that idea. And a thought on those saucers, what about creating your own with cement or concrete? Create a mold first, then pour in your concrete cement mix and stain paint it to match the pot. I've seen people mix baking soda into paint for a texture stone look. That's a really fun idea too. Maybe we should do that as a video project one of these days. Also, a lot of you guys just said, get your terracotta and spray it with stone, like gray stone spray
sure.
paint. I'm like, oh, well, that's a really great idea. Why didn't I think of that? And then we did a video, like 3 years ago now, about how to glaze the inside of your terracotta so they don't weep.
Yeah.
And so we've got all the product here. We can do that. We could spray some saucers and then glaze them again. Mm-hmm. Because you can buy terracotta saucers that have been glazed on the inside instead of raw. So if you're putting plants in your house, you have to be very careful about where you put them. If you're putting them in a porous, raw terracotta saucer, you want them to be glazed on the inside so they'll actually hold the water. Tina said, referencing the view of the vehicles from the Hartley, have you considered a covered carport that could be used as an outside covered area like a gazebo? We've considered lots of different things.
I think we're worried that it'd be just like too much structure, too many structures.
Yeah, with the raised bed, with the fence, and then the chicken coop and the house and the barn. Everything's kind of clustered all together. Mm-hmm. Ideally, we would clean up the area, which we are working toward, to park the gators and stuff back behind the barn, and maybe free up space in the garage to actually park our vehicles in there, which would be great. A little bit longer of a walk, but then they would be, protected from snow and mm-hmm. all the rain that we get all the time.
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next video is seeding grass in the orchard, maize garden tour, and pruning a willow. That was really exciting because we've been looking forward to that project. I mean, it's just one more area where we're going to get something planted to keep the dust down, keep the noxious weeds out, and just kind of controlled. And I think it's going to make it look so pretty out there. So we seeded some RTF, which is Rhizomatous turf fescue, in the orchard, and I kind of talked through all the details of that. And then I had to stop when I was coming back to prune the willow. That was our third project, but I wanted to give you a tour of the maize garden because it was just looking really pretty at that moment. Andrea said, can you tell how old that willow is and what variety it is? It's such a beautiful, beautiful tree. It is a beautiful tree. I don't know how old it is. I think that our friends who owned the house before us planted it there. So I want to say, like, it can't be, they were here for 10 years. We've been here for 6.
So it can't be more than 20.
Right.
Maybe
It's
15?
under 20.
Yeah, 15 maybe?
Willows grow fast, super fast. That's the one thing about willows, but I'll take it. Nelda said maize garden or maize garden, like as in corn.
Yeah.
Lots of corn in there. Everything is just growing so beautifully. I had one supertunia that kind of like, I don't know what's wrong with it. And then my bunny tail grass didn't do great, but everything else in that space is doing beautifully. I mean, the vines didn't grow up the trellis like I was hoping, but they're growing. They're growing and healthy, and they blooms all over on them. So, you know, I can't really call that a fail 100%. Farm Fresh with Jess said, how do you keep squash bugs out of your pumpkins? I have a huge problem with them, and they have destroyed my summer squash. They are the worst. So one thing you can do, there's several things you can do. Usually what you want to do is wait until the plant is just starting to send out runners. Usually that's about the time when we start preventative spraying ours. Captain Jack's is typically what we use. You want to make sure to just saturate the crap out of that plant, like top of the leaves, undersides of the leaves, stems, soil underneath. Do that once a week. And then I think Paul sprinkled diatomaceous earth. I've seen white powder all over on him several times this summer, and I think that's helped. You can also plant blue Hubbard squash as a host plant for squash bugs. I noticed this last year, and then some of you guys pointed out that it truly is a host plant. Our pumpkin patch was pretty clean for most of the season. I planted a blue Hubbard at the end of one of our raspberry raised beds, which is kind of like, what do you think, 30 feet away or so? And because I had extra space in that bed, I didn't have enough raspberries to plant it. So I thought I wanted to make use of the space, planted the blue Hubbard. That one was covered in squash bugs, while all the rest of them, like there's a field of pumpkins just 30 feet away, and they were not interested in those plants like they were in the blue Hubbard. So there are some moments in my gardening journey that I realize how important like companion planting and things like that can actually be. Sometimes I don't know how effective it is, but sometimes it really can be effective. Kim said, with the rest of the approximately 35 pounds of grass, why not put it on the new property to help reduce the blowing dirt? It sounds like it doesn't need a ton of help growing once established. We'd have to irrigate that. We don't have any water set up on the new property at all. So it would need consistent irrigation to get up and growing. And it does need irrigation throughout the season. It's not like it's a dryland grass at all. And I think I gave the impression that this grass was going to spread like wildfire. It's nothing like Bermuda grass. I know some of you guys have to grow that as your grass, like warm season grass. It's the worst. It's the worst, and it spreads by rhizome as well. This RTF is nothing like Bermuda grass. It does not spread that aggressively, not even close. And I just didn't even think to talk about the differences there, because we do get Bermuda grass and we treat it as a noxious weed here. We try to get rid of it at all costs because it spreads everywhere.
Does it survive the winter?
No, it dies back. I don't know if the roots the tops completely die back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if some of the roots are buried deep enough to where they survive. I don't know. Michelle said, I'm curious if you're going to have troubles with spreading under the privacy fence or end up intermingling with your pathway. Do you have a plan for either of these situations? Well, there's going to be Kentucky blue in the grass that we use in the pathways, which also spreads by rhizomes. And then this one spreads by rhizomes. I think it's all going to come out in the wash. I think it'll be fine. We're going to be keeping the pathway mowed more like a lawn. And when you consistently mow stuff like that too, it kind of keeps things a little bit more in check. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not too worried about it though. I kind of want the whole area to feel very natural and almost a little bit more unkept in a very strategic way, if that makes sense. Madeline said, I love the weeping willow. They really are magical. Will you be putting one in the south garden? I don't know if we'll put one in the south garden, but I was just recently, like 2 nights ago, was saying we should put one in the back corner of the I don't even know what to call it anymore. The garden next to the
north
barn.
garden.
The north garden, is that what you want to call it?
Well,
It is the garden that's furthest north that we have. So the north garden where the circular boxwoods are. And you guys, I do have to prep those of you who like kind of knew our debate. We were debating whether or not we could incorporate this massive circular section of boxwoods in the back garden with what we currently have going on. And Aaron really wants to rip them out. I was really reluctant because they are pretty and I really have enjoyed them, but completely wrong for the space. And I know that. And I think we are going to take them out. So I'm just prepping you now that is going to happen.
I might put the feelers out and see if anybody wants to attempt to save them.
Yeah.
Because we thought about putting them somewhere else, but they're just too huge.
We thought about picking the whole thing up and moving it back behind the Hartley, but they're like when the fence was in and the flower beds were very much more structured right there, it felt a lot smaller than it actually is, but we should measure that. It's big.
Yeah.
And I can't even think of a space out there where it would look right.
Right. We have friends that are, I don't know what the word is, but they like have machines and so I can see potentially somebody coming with a little mini excavator being like, yeah, I'll dig a little moat around, the outside of them and try to get a good amount of dirt on them and see if we can move them. So I'm not necessarily happy about ripping them out, but I am happy about putting something in that space that works. Like,
are you sure?
We don't go back there because that's such a monstrosity. Like it's pretty to take pictures of, but we never go back there. And I think we need to make that space. Like we go to the south garden because it's walkable, it's drivable with the gator.
We take the kids out in the evenings and drive through the gardens and
you can hardly even get between the boxwoods and that black lace elderberry that's there.
You tried to hit me with that the other night. Remember, we were back there with the kids, and I was like, you can fit there, totally. And he's like, okay. So you went really fast to where the branches would totally whip me in the face so that I would understand your point that it was too narrow. Real nice, Aaron.
Did it work?
Maybe.
Did it really?
I don't know. I just know that, so I drew out the way that I think the pathway could go there. We need to have it go through there and then also branch off to where it can go back behind the barn too, because we have access already right there and we use it a lot. And I drew out a plan to where we can have a really pretty vista from the Hartley, like through the Hartley garden, under an arbor on either side, and into that garden with a beautiful vista right back behind. That was the moment that I was like,
this could work.
And I think we got to get rid of those boxwoods.
I feel like that whole space is like a Band-Aid. Not the whole space, but most of the plants in there need to be rehomed somewhere else, either with a friend or elsewhere.
Elsewhere? What do you mean by elsewhere, Aaron?
Well, like if you can put something in the south garden, like if you want to do some this
meant
fall,
the compost heap.
No, if we can do some transplanting this fall, I say let's
I'll probably do a bunch of the perennials, because perennials that haven't been in there for a really long time, not as established, will transplant a lot better. But okay, Claire said, when Aaron said we'll start with number 3, I was like, number 7 or 8. I'm curious what number you landed on. I am too.
Well, so each click was not a number. I think that there's like 4 clicks per number. So there's like 3 and a quarter, 3 and a half, 3 and 3/4. So I think I ended off at like 5 or 6 in the end.
Carrie said, question about watering the orchard. Will the trees only get water from the overhead system, or do you have drip on them as well? I'm doing a similar setup, but worry about my trees getting too frequent of water, but not deep enough to get the roots. We do not have drip set up to our trees. We're just going to have to kind of play that one by ear. We will not have to irrigate that quite as much as we irrigate other grass, and we're hoping to get it into a situation where we are doing a deeper soak less often. So hopefully that'll all balance out.
We typically don't have trouble with growing trees in a lawn area where they're getting watered by sprinklers. Lots of people have trees in their lawn.
But I see the concern there.
Yeah. But I've never seen that. I don't know what part of the country that would be a problem with, because I've never seen that to be. We do have an issue with evergreens in the lawn. They never seem to like the amount of water.
Yeah.
So I see some people that make it work, and I don't know how they do it.
How does their grass look?
Green.
Oh.
Yeah, like not terrible. But I think you really have to put a type of grass in there where you don't water it as often, or you do, 1 or 2 times a week.
Sure. Sharon said, what did you do to get rid of all the weeds that were there previously? We were actually talking with Paul about that, and I think you said something about you could get in there and not use a tractor or the land plane or something. Paul just like pulled them all out.
Yeah, he did. Well, he asked me to water a little bit so that the soil wouldn't be so, dry. And he said it was easy.
Yeah.
Once there was a little bit of moisture, he just pulled them all up. And
Well, we did till last fall to plant all of those bulbs, which somebody pointed out, and I don't know if it made it into the recap, but we were talking about the bulbs that I planted last fall and how it's possible there's a few factors that could have, lent to their kind of poor display this spring. Not enough moisture, too warm of a winter, and maybe planted too deep. And I'm wondering, someone's like, I wonder because you tilled, I wonder when you started to irrigate if they sunk a little lower.
Oh, sure.
Like light bulb. I'd never even thought about that. That's why this comment section and like hearing from you guys is so helpful. Yes. I never even thought like, oh, well, duh, that probably did happen. Yeah. But it makes for easy weed pulling. That's for sure. And right now when we're irrigating the grass to get it up, we've got a bunch of bulb foliage coming up. It's really weird. Last fall, I had snowdrops blooming in the fall, like around Halloween.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is weird. Am I going to get any blooms this winter? And I still did. It's really strange. Mary Jo said, what do you think about planting clover instead of grass? Less watering, less mowing. I'm thinking of doing it. I love the look of it, but I have memories of my grandparents' lawn having clover all over in it. And it wasn't like a desirable thing at the time, I guess. Mm-hmm. And us kids would run from their house. They had a swimming pool, and we would run from their house to the pool, and there was always bees on it. And I got stung on the bottom of the foot. And I know in this situation, like in an orchard, you don't really normally have kids running around barefoot. But I just have that memory, and for some reason, that's just put me off.
Sure.
Is that weird? That should probably not put me off of it, but
I know it's definitely growing in popularity. A lot more people are trying clover. Mm-hmm. I don't know of a lot of people that are like have been doing clover for a long time and are like, oh yeah, this is the way to go. Mm-hmm. I just see a lot of people that speak highly of it in like the first year or second year.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. This is the last video for this week. New brick walkway going in and planting for winter interest. So I showed you the beginning when the guys were just starting to pull the concrete pieces out. And seeing the weird tipped pavers, wasn't that just like...
It makes me happy because some of those pieces of concrete were heaving and they were just poured on the dirt. There was no gravel compacted layer below them. And so, of course, they're going to heave. But like people would trip. I would trip on them because they weren't right. So I'm really happy to see a lot of that go.
Yeah. Oh, they've done such a beautiful job. I cannot wait to show you guys. Ugh. Shelly said, are those proudberries poisonous to dogs? So proudberries, they're a symphoricarpus or a snowberry. I believe they do have some kind of a quality in them that can be poisonous, toxic, if ingested, but I think it has to be like massive quantities. And I think they're so mild that usually dogs will pass them without even noticing that anything has happened. So yeah. And I know they're really good forage for birds and stuff. They don't bother birds at all. Elizabeth said, beautiful space, loving the renovations and plants you use. Random thought. I kind of miss the fairy gardens you used to do. We've been kind of recently talking about that. Could you maybe do one during these hot days or this coming winter? It would be interesting to me. I was, as we were talking about it, I just thought, I wonder if they would look different now.
Yeah, right.
Because I look at a lot of like my succulent arrangements from before and I'm like, oh, and I was so proud of that, and I look at it now and I'm like, well, I mean, we're all learning, right? It's all a journey and our styles change and things, but I think that would be fun to do. Maybe a good winter project because we're going to be like, what's the saying? Gung-ho with trees and plants out there this fall. Renee said, where are the yellow evergreens like golden arborvitae, yellow yew, golden juniper? We have a yellow arborvitae out there.
It's not doing that great.
No, it's not. It's all brown. And
so I think that everything kind of gets a yellow tint in our climate.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not like desirable for us.
No, we lean more on like deep greens and blues if possible. Try to get, and like in color tone of flowers. I mean, I think that's why I lean toward cooler colors because we're just so hot and dry here normally and everything gets that yellowish, orange, brown hue in the summertime that it's nice to have something that visually reduces the color, the temperature. Visually reduces
so many of our trees turn a little yellow. Almost all the maples. That one maple that must have been popular like 30 or 40 years ago, the box elder, maple.
Sensation box elder?
Sensation box elder. That has kind of an orangey, yellowy
Yeah, its
hue
new
to
growth
it.
is orange, and it kind of maintains that through the summer. It's not sick. It's just the color of the tree. Its fall color is glorious.
Yeah.
Really pretty. JK said, I love the mixture of brick and flagstone. Have you thought about some sort of brick border around the flagstone patio? You just suggested that.
Yeah.
To kind of tie the two areas. We're still kind of going back and forth as to whether or not we want to do brick off of the sidewalk, but where we have the concrete table typically, or flagstone. I don't know if we are taking out the little weird, it looks weird now. It wasn't weird before, but the little North Star boxwood hedge that has hellebores in the middle of it, we're taking that out because when the concrete was removed, we realized that concrete was poured at a pretty dramatic angle away from the house. So when we put in the new brick walkway that's centered with the door and goes straight up to the door, the boxwoods are now like off at a weird angle. So we are going to have a little bit larger of a patio. I think I'm going to move the table somewhere else and get an actual seating grouping of chairs in there. We would use that all the time, every day.
On the north side.
Yeah.
We would use it all the time.
We would use it all the time.
So long as the cats don't sleep on it. We need to make sure, like, to keep the cats.
How do you do that?
So much, and then
well,
it's
I get light colored
orange.
cushions. We get some orange cushions. You will never
Get
know.
orange cushions.
We just need to cover it. My parents cover all their furniture. I hate doing that though.
Yeah.
Kind of takes away from the view a little bit when you've got
Probably
big.
just about the only thing you can do though.
Probably. Book Mom said, have you thought about extending the barn roof over the area behind the barn? Yes, we have. You can keep the rain and snow off the gators, keep the ends open for a drive-through. You can leave the fence area open or build a wall to keep the blowing wind, rain, or snow off the gators. More dry storage area. I actually just explained, and I don't think you're going to see that video before this one comes out. Sorry, I've only hit it once, I think, today.
I don't think it makes a big noise when you hit it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I finished onion and potato harvest today. So I was back behind the barn and I was kind of explaining what we're going to do back there. We are going to have one built this fall, like a little overhang.
In fact, the same guy that built the studio here.
Yeah, he's going to come and do that. So that means, I don't know if we're going to be moving firewood, but for the time being, firewood will be under storage back there, and the gators and the golf cart, and that'll be so nice.
We need to clean up the whole area so
Yes.
it's blank back there, but I don't know where to put all the stuff. We might be able to fit some stuff behind our orchard fence.
Well, the thing is, I wonder if we could put it in the greenhouse. I don't really have much going on in there right now.
Yeah, but you're just going to have to move it again. Whereas if you put stuff behind the orchard fence,
Sure.
it could feasibly stay there until the next time it needs to be used.
What if we put up a high tunnel somewhere where we know we're going to use a high tunnel out on the new property?
Oh, yeah.
And just like, so it's covered at least, and we know we're going to use the high tunnel next season.
Yeah, put stuff
and then
in
we
the
could
high
just,
tunnel.
and then we
Oh,
have
that's
a
a
little
good
more
idea.
time, and then it's not like you see it.
Right.
We can close it off so that we don't have a junk pile.
What kind of stuff are you growing in your high tunnel? Oh, just firewood and concrete pieces,
Yep.
irrigation supplies.
Renee said, it's amazing what you've done. Do you ever see anyone else's drones flying over your property? Yes. Do you plan on painting
Does it bother you?
Yes. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I'm like, can you shoot a drone that's over your property? I wouldn't do that, but could you? Could you do that?
Okay, so you can't do it if you're in the city, which we're not. But
we could
I think you probably can if the drone is over your property and you're not shooting it over somebody else's property. You might be able to. I've never looked into it. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you plan on painting the hose reel 4x4 bases? No.
What are they now?
Wood.
Just
I don't know. They're like a 4x4 post.
yeah. I mean, we could paint them black.
I suppose.
A lot of our stuff is black, but
That
we
would
could
look
stain
nice. That's a project for a different day, though.
Yeah.
We still haven't painted the irrigation box lids.
it. Yeah.
We've been meaning to do that for like 5 years.
Right.
Darlene said, do you keep some kind of list/map of where you have planted perennials, shrubs, and trees? Your ability to remember the names of your plantings always amazes me. You possibly don't need the map, but I'm thinking of future generations. Our map is our videos at this point.
Quite an archive at this point.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, it's a pain to look back because I never know. I'll do so many projects in some vlogs. I'll do, like 3, 4, 5 projects. And then it's real hard to find, like, when did I plant that group of perennials? What video was that in? Amber said, and this is the last question, maybe an arbor or arch solution for the entrance option. The entrance option of the... Oh, yeah. I don't know. we kind of have thought, I mean, that's what we had there was that arbor. And the thing about that space that I don't really want to repeat is something that's flat and straight. You know, because that arbor was flat and straight. You know, you'd park your cars here, and then the arbor was here, and it makes you like just want to walk straight through. But you have to go either right or left to go to one of those areas. So I feel like having something that curves toward the back shade porch, and then something that curves you more toward the Hartley. It's just marrying that into something that makes sense. That is a little bit difficult, but I really yeah. So maybe if we had an arbor that led up to the back shade porch, and then no arbor leading to the Hartley, that opening. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. That might have to sit for a minute. We might have to just try something and then see how it doesn't work and then fix it.
Yeah, well, I don't really want to do that, but
I know. Either way, though, I want pillars. There's going to be pillars everywhere. Yeah. There's going to be pillars on
but not brick. A lot of people think of brick when
concrete pillars, but they'll have like urns or lights or something. That we're going to get pillars that have holes in the middle so you can run electric or drip tubing up them. But there will be pillars on either side of our big step leading down to the Hartley. Pillars in front, pillars on the side of the east side, so that it all matches, and then probably the same kind of pillars that indicate the pathway to the back shade porch. Probably. I like pillars quite a lot. We'll see what happens. And that is it, you guys, for today's recap video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great week, and we will see you in the next one.